Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here. Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here.
A small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
I tell you, nothing makes me more excited as a Star Wars fan than seeing that there's new physical media releases due out. We'll be talking about that coming up later in news, but that's very exciting. And that's odd because it comes out after Disney was talking that they're out of the physical media business game. They're going to partner with, I think, Sony on future releases. And when you think about just how much back catalog Disney now controls between 20th Century Fox and, of course, Disney Studios, Pixar, now Lucasfilm, all of that, it's a scary thing, I think, when they start talking about, hey, we're out of social media, or physical media. I wish they'd get out of social media sometimes, but no. So that's coming up later on in the show here on Rebel Force Radio. So glad to be back with you. Thanks for hanging out with us. And a special shout out to everybody that's been joining us live for our Bad Batch after shows. Those have been a real good time. This week was no exception. So if you haven't had a chance to listen, we were talking about episode 5 here from season 3, The Return. And we're breaking it all down. Lots of theories about what's going on with Crosshair. What's up with his hand? So if you're enjoying Bad Batch, and even if you're not enjoying Bad Batch, it's still a great listen. So check it out because, it's not like we're sitting there and fawning all over the show. We point out the warts. We point out the things we love, the things that we don't love. But it's just a fun conversation. And the phone calls from Patreon members and the live chat just adds to the flavor. It's a really, really great time. So please check it out. Lots of things coming up. As I mentioned, we got physical media releases. Also, we're going to be covering that crazy, crazy ad campaign. Got everybody talking. That's right, that one. The Chilean beer commercials that were inserted into a broadcast of the Star Wars films. Also, John Williams, he's in the news. It's Oscar weekend. That's right. So if you're really into films and the Oscars, you probably maybe you got a watch party coming up this weekend to watch the Oscars. And let's not forget Billy Dee, the book. We had the autobiography, audio highlights from that, and only one clip will be crowned the Billy Dee quote of the week. What will it be this week? Plus, if we have time, Star Wars and pop culture and so much more. Rebel Force Radio, your source for the Force, and your source also for this guy. That's right, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Physical releases, they're not going to die. Boy, they're coming back strong, huh? I thought Disney was smart in getting out of that business, but then they started looking at the bottom line after a year or two and said, hey, what did we used to do that would make us money that we're not doing anymore? And I guess releasing
Didn't we
things
used
to
to
home
sell
video.
movies? Yeah, that did pretty well for us. Yeah.
Remember that? But yeah, Jason, as you brought up, they are going to be farming out that stuff to Sony. And I'm sure that's going to come with some very hefty licensing fees and things like that. But as far as I know, the Star Wars streaming series 4K Blu Ray releases that we'll be talking about later, those are being produced by Disney, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. We got a lot of fun things to talk about this week, but I want to talk about a few things that we brought up last week. And one of those things is it's a new segment here we call Star Wars Cringe. Ooh, that's so cringy. And this definitely falls into that category. We talked about the book Heir to the Jedi by Kevin Hearn. It was released, I think, around 2014. And in that book, there is reference to a song called Vader's Many Prosthetic Parts. I think we felt like it was a little too on the nose.
A little bit.
Yeah. But I had fuzzy memories about this particular passage in the book, probably because I don't remember the book so well because I didn't finish it, because once I got the Vader's Many Prosthetic Parts, I chucked the book across the room and gave up.
I'm out. Tapped out.
But the tickle of a memory had me go down the rabbit hole this week, and so I found myself reviewing the audiobook to Heir to the Jedi. And the background behind this is Luke. The whole book is told from Luke Skywalker's perspective, and it happens. I think it happens in between the period of time between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. So Luke isn't really on board with all the revelations and things like that. He can barely use the Force. Throughout the book, he tries using the Force on a plate of noodles to see if he can make a. He goes, "Oh, look! I think I made that noodle wiggle."
Man,
it's like, oh boy, this is some high action and adventure going on here in the pages of this book. But that's nothing compared to Vader's Many Prosthetic Parts.
My dad used to do this with fruit to impress girls. That's why he's doing it with noodles.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know.
He doesn't know. This is post A New Hope, Luke.
Yeah, so I think it's very important that we keep that in mind as we continue this exploration of one of the weirdest things ever to be printed in the pages of a Star Wars book. But the background on this is about 10 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Empire sent Nakari Kalene's mother to the spice mines of Kessel. Nakari Kalene is the companion of Luke's throughout this adventure, the heir to the Jedi. I don't know, Jason, you gave a look like maybe something romantic's happening, but I don't recall.
I'm a hopeless romantic. I love romance in Star Wars, but no, right? Nothing?
Nothing. You're a hopeless romantic, and right now, romance in Star Wars is hopeless. We don't see it at all. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even exist anymore. There is no love in a galaxy far, far away. But so this Nakari Kalene, her mother got sent to the spice mines at Kessel for writing the song Vader's Many Prosthetic Parts. And so she explains
on there.
Well, I think in this sample I pulled from the audiobook, I think you'll hear that it was more than censorship. I think it was a little something personal between the Empire and Nakari's mother. So it does me no good to explain this any further. Let's just go right to the audiobook, Heir to the Jedi by Kevin Hearn, narrated by Mark Thompson, and hear all about the song, Vader's Many Prosthetic Parts.
The Empire killed my mother over a song. What? My mother was a songwriter and vocalist. She sang backup harmonies for a band. Really? What band? Don't laugh, okay? The name wasn't her idea. They were called Hackode Traslip and the Tootle Fruits. The Tootle Fruits? Nakari sighed with a note of impatience. I know how ridiculous it sounds to tell people your mom was a Tootle Fruit. I don't even know what a Tootle Fruit is, okay?
She said not to laugh.
But anyway, she wrote a political song for the group, and they recorded it, and it became their biggest hit. Thing is, it got them all sent to the spice mines of Kessel. That's a pretty extreme reaction to a song on the Empire's part, though. What was it? Would I know it? Depends on your access to declared contraband. It was called Vader's Many Prosthetic Parts. Hey, I do know that. Hilarious song. I didn't know the band had been punished for it, though. Oh, it happened quickly. She gazed down into her lap, her voice soft. mere days after its release. Lord Vader has no sense of humor.
Oh, man. He's even listening to the latest pop charts. I mean, how does this happen? Like, is Vader in his meditation chamber? He's just skimming the dial. He lands on this tune.
Right. Yeah.
I'm Casey Kasem. On with the countdown. Shooting like a Death Star laser blast up to number 1. It's Vader's Many Prosthetic Parts by Heiko Draziv and the Toodle Fruits. On the countdown, the Imperial Countdown.
I don't know, man.
Unbelievable. And
what I think is crazy is that she's talking to Luke.
Mm-hmm.
And Luke goes, yeah, I know that song. It's hilarious. And like, I mean, come on. I almost expect now, like there's going to be a fan edit of the saber duel on board the Death Star 2, where Luke says, you'll never turn me to the dark side with your many prosthetic parts. Remember that song?
On with the countdown.
I just wouldn't imagine after Vader cut, in Luke's mind, cut Ben Kenobi down, that Luke would be down with, like, just riffing on it. Yeah, it's funny, man. I like making fun of that guy. One time, I was on the Death Star.
I always like to think of my Darth Vader as someone who worked in the shadows, and your typical like population of the galaxy, they didn't know who he was or he even existed, I don't think they put him on TV and stuff. I don't think he was a public figure or anything like that.
No, I do think that, and this is all in my own headcanon, but I do think with sort of the evidence that we have of Darth Vader and how he's treated and, just sort of how he fits in to the Imperials around him in A New Hope, that up to that point, I think he has been in the shadows. I think he has been sort of the Emperor's kind of enforcer, secret weapon. People don't really know what to make of him. You've got some of these stooges just outright threatening him and trying to push him around. And he, obviously he fights back. He chokes out Mahdi. But I think it's not until after the Death Star is destroyed that I think Vader becomes really the official number 2 in the Empire and becomes more of a face for the military. That's in my own headcanon. I got nothing to base that on other than just seems like his profile raises between A New Hope and Empire. No one's messing around with him in Empire. Everyone's scared to death of him. They're not in A New Hope.
Yeah, his reputation definitely does precede him when he's dealing with Imperial officers, at least.
Yeah.
So, but that's
but
the
to
song,
Joe Public, it's just weird. I don't like to think he has any reputation with Joe Public.
None whatsoever. So that's the song, Vader's Many Prosthetic Parts. I don't know. I mean, we have some musically oriented, talented people listening to this show, and there are no lyrics that exist for the song. So, it's an open canvas, wide open, blank canvas for you.
I think author Kevin Hearn really took the lazy way out by not writing some lyrics. Come on, Kevin. You're going to come up with something that crazy. You commit to the bit, Kevin. I want lyrics.
The whole book is a real stinker. So it doesn't surprise me that like the only thing we're even talking about when it comes to that book from 10 years ago is the silly reference to what was it, a parody song? Luke said it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So it'd be like, it's like on the Dr. Demento show. Hey, it's the Dr. Demento show. It's time for Vader's prosthetic parts. Dr. Demento! It's just one of those weird moments. So that's Star Wars cringe for you. I have one other entry into Star Wars cringe for this week, based on following up on a conversation from last week. You were asking about Boba Fett. Did he actually appear in the old Droids cartoon from the 80s? And I knew he did, but I couldn't really scratch the surface of my memory even to recall like how or why. So I went back and I watched the episode. I watched it so you don't have to.
I got a confession to make, though.
Yeah. What, you watched it?
I watched it, too.
Oh, you did?
I watched it.
Well, that's
I
hilarious.
watched it after we recorded because I was like, why don't I remember this? Because I can't say I watched every episode of Ewoks and Droids, and I was only 8-9 years old when that was on. But I'm like, why don't I remember it? And so, yeah, I went back and I endured it as well.
Man, we're both just gluttons for punishment around here at Rebel Force Radio. But Boba Fett briefly appears in the 4th episode called The Race to the Finish. And it's really weird why he's incorporated into this episode. There are these gangsters. And the gangsters are upset because they're not as popular as they used to be. Because
that's not a summary. That's not like a paraphrase. That's pretty much a direct quote from the show.
And because the speeder racers were stealing the popularity and the spotlight away from the gangster, so they hired Boba Fett to hunt down the racers. And the racers, R2 and 3PO, they're rolling with the racers. And so Boba Fett enters a race into a speeder race. And R2 chucks a grenade at his speeder, and so Boba Fett bails with his jetpack. And that's it. And that's the whole story basically right there. I think it's more notable for this episode that you could spot 2-1B in the episode as well. So I think 2-1B had a bigger impact on me than even Boba Fett did in this episode.
Yeah, I caught...
what's this? Oh, is this the beginning of the... What is this you're showing me?
This is just sort of a little highlight reel of all of his... Just kind of edits all of his appearances in the episode together, so...
Oh, I don't remember that part, but the dude
that was at the very end, yeah.
That was at the very end?
Yeah.
Oh, I must have zoned out there.
Mac fell asleep. There were two things
I thought you didn't see him after he evacuated from the crashing speeder. I thought that was it.
No, he comes back and then he gets his revenge on these gangsters. There's two things that jumped out at me with this episode. One is that there are a couple of name drops. I missed the 2-1B. I did not see 2-1B, but the name drops, they dropped Jabba the Hutt and they dropped the Emperor. And I know I didn't see this as a kid because I would have remembered that. Like, I'd have been so psyched that Jabba was dropped and that they said something about the... I think the Emperor does get referred to here and there because they're all living under the thumb of the Emperor. But coming next week, folks, live on the Rebel Force Radio YouTube channel, Star Wars Droids, The Adventures of R2 and 3PO After Show. We'll be breaking it all down.
Don't say that. There's some people out there who would be disappointed when it doesn't actually happen.
I know. But no, I actually, what jogged my memory with this was that I had a chance to, and if you watch these droids and Ewoks, you got to be wondering, like, what was going on with these writers? This episode, by the way, Peter Sauter and Stephen Wright. And it's spelled the same way as comedian Stephen Wright, but I don't think it's the same guy that wrote this. This was early on. This was episode 4 of the first season. Yeah. But back in 2008, I had a chance to talk to one of the writers of Droids and Ewoks, legendary writer for animation, the creator of Harley Quinn, Paul Dini. And I was able to ask Paul what were they thinking when they were writing this, and at what point did they discover that they weren't really going to be writing Star Wars as we know it? So I've got this clip from this interview back in 2008.
Did you know going into it that it wasn't really Star Wars, but yet it was? It was...
Well, what had happened was that we didn't really. We thought we were going to have a little more freedom than we had, And Saturday morning, and it was for the networks and broadcast standards and everything. And it was a step toward the shows that would exist 10 years beyond that, but it was still kind of dismal as far as, trying to get some creativity in there. People were trying it. Like Henson had come out with Muppet Babies, and that was a pretty creative show.
Oh, yeah.
And Disney was getting involved in Saturday morning and in afternoon programming, but it was still the network's old school mentality that it's all for kids. Do not reach beyond what the focus groups say that children can't understand. Do not show violence. Do not show weaponry and all that sort of thing. Going in, we thought we'd have more freedom. That was what was talked about. We thought we would be doing more of a Star Wars type show, but it didn't turn out that way. So we tried to concentrate on other elements, like making the shows look pretty, or characters, or comedy, or something, in order to do the episodes. But it was kind of disappointing that we didn't get the big toys to play with. I mean, we did. I mean, we could have still done terrific shows if we were on Cartoon Network or cable or something. It's just that the network mindset killed us, which was sort of like, don't be as creative as you can be because it's for kids and kids don't get it, and do not show any violence or conflict. And, what a breath of fresh air it is for Ventress to stick a lightsaber through a guy's chest. Like, thank you. Thank you.
We talked to Paul because at that point he was writing. He had written a couple of episodes of Clone Wars, including one where Asajj Ventress takes a saber to the chest, or delivers a saber to the chest, I believe. I can't remember. It's been a lot.
That's a great clip.
Yeah, so Paul Dini, legendary guy. He was a lot of fun to talk to, and he was there. They did the best they could. These guys. It wasn't like you watch it and you're like, did anybody actually see Star Wars that's writing these shows? Believe me, they did. They were fans, but it was just a different time. Jim, back then those cartoons, whether they were based on Planet of the Apes or Star Wars or Star Trek, I will say stayed pretty true to the original series, to the point where some fans even consider that animated series a lost fourth season of the original series. But for the most part, it was really dumbed down. Even, Super Friends and things like that. They didn't play up to the kids. They played way down to the kids. So,
and kids loved Star Wars, but they wouldn't even do Star Wars level conflict, action, violence, what have you. And so it's like, who are you targeting this for? 5-year-olds? Okay, fine. I guess they're the only kids watching Saturday morning cartoons. I don't think so. But, kids, I think kids were more sophisticated in the 80s than Hollywood gave them credit for being. Yeah. And you can see it in the pop culture and entertainment of that era.
Yeah. There's something kind of charming. I look at a show like Ewoks and Droids. It's nice background, especially if it tickles the nostalgia bone. But it's not, if you're saying, I want to just get all the Star Wars canon that I possibly can, it's not really worth your time there. I think.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Sad but true.
Yeah.
Sad but true. There was a period like in the 90s when all that stuff was extremely interesting and worth seeking out because there was so little Star Wars, and these seemed to be moments from Star Wars that were kind of lost to time. And when you finally did get reunited with them, like the Droids Ewoks cartoons or the holiday special, it seemed like, wow, this is really interesting. But was it entertaining? No.
Yeah, right.
Very hit or miss. Very hit or miss.
It's funny what nostalgia can do. Hey, speaking of looking back, this is listener feedback. Let's do that. Let's give it a proper intro.
Sure.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
All right, we'll kick listener feedback off with an email. This comes from Skybear. Guessing that's not their real name. From Hartford City, Indiana. Skybear writes, I started listening to RFR from the beginning. Holy cow. That's a long time. What a fun ride. On December 12th, 2014, Jimmy speculated on the last name of Ray, and one of the suggestions is Skywalker. It's fun to hear that now, and he may have been the first to say it. Love the show. Maybe you were the first, Jim, to ever say Ray Skywalker.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I think this was the same week character names for episode 7 were revealed. So we were finally learning the names of these characters that we've been seeing, and I think there might have been some photos here and there. We certainly knew who the cast was, but we didn't know what their names were. So I think, if I remember correctly, we were reviewing those names, and when we got to Ray, I think we were like, no last name attached? What's up with that? So let's listen to the clip.
We see Daisy Ridley. Yes, Daisy Ridley. Her character has been rumored to be named Kira by many sources online. But here we see her name is Ray. R-E-Y. Ray. Ray on her speeder. Ray. No last name. Okay. Now, the reason her last name is omitted is because there could be something in her last name that would indicate perhaps a family relationship to another Star Wars character, or maybe might reveal who her parents are, or maybe Ray is her last name, and maybe her first name's Kira.
I think
Ray.
her last name is Raymond.
Raymond.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, there's really nothing to back that up, Steve.
Yeah, no.
Nothing there.
I think honestly with Ray, I think the exclusion of her last name really says more than including her name.
Ray Solo. Maybe I just said her name for the first time. Ray Skywalker. Huh?
Could be.
Ray Kitster.
Right.
No.
Now,
I bet when Skybear was listening to that and he heard you playing around with Ray Solo, he's like, "You're so close. Just say it. Say it. He said it. It's Ray Skywalker."
Ray Skywalker.
Yeah.
Ray Skywalker. So, it was good to hear Steve Glosson. He must have been sitting in for you that week.
Yeah, that was funny. Oh, Steve always brings the funny. Yeah, so imagine if the first time Ray Skywalker was ever uttered outside the halls of Lucasfilm was right here on Rebel Force Radio. Incredible.
I gave them the idea.
JJ's
So
driving around California, listening to RFR.
Mm-hmm.
And he hears that.
So you could place the blame at my feet. You know, so many people get so upset about that Ray Skywalker. I don't care. That doesn't affect me at all.
I mean, it's all right. It's okay. It's not my favorite thing, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Things took so many twists and turns to get
there. There was such a clearer, cleaner shot to that, and they took the most circuitous route you could imagine. Crazy. We got a couple of voicemails. As I said earlier, we're having a great time with our Bad Batch after shows, and one of the topics that came up this week was Crosshair's hand thing. Not the Baby Yoda hand thing. This is Crosshair's hand thing. It's a different hand thing, and we got a voicemail response to this week's Bad Batch after show already. Amazing.
Okay.
Hey, Rebel Force Radio. Chut. This is Fletcher from Maryland. First off, guys, just want to thank you for all of your encouragement and support that you provide to this community. Your podcasts and even your comments on the Facebook page filled me with a lot of hope and courage as I've been going through a season of unemployment. Really helped me with my depression as I'm getting ready to go back to work now next week. But enough with the mushy stuff here. I've been thinking quite a bit more about Crosshair and his shaky hand. Like you, Jimmy, I'm ready for answers. I'm ready to reach a resolution on this. But until then, now we just need to speculate. So I've been thinking, what's the craziest scenario that could happen that might be true? So let me quickly lay it on you here. What if Hemlock has been keeping Crosshair and guys like him around who have been unable to be proved positive for the midichlorian tests and use them for other experiments, specifically developing a virus that is designed to target after clones? This could feed into a bigger risk that the Bad Batch is needing to take care of on a more galaxy-wide scale in protecting their brothers by eradicating this experimentation of a virus that would target all of their brothers. This would also perhaps play a little bit more into Crosshair's story as he's realizing that he's already a dead man walking. I know we've all been speculating a lot that Crosshair is the one that dies by the end of this season, and this could be a added layer of that sacrifice of, I'm going to go out anyway, but I want to go out in a way that is redeemed, where I can forgive myself. Take some time to think about it if you all want to. Just thought that might be an interesting take where it might eventually explain the shakiness of his hand, but also give us a bigger conflict that our heroes are needing to deal with for this final season. Keep on at it, guys. Thank you for all you do. Bye.
Hey, thanks, Fletcher, and glad that we could be of help to you during hard times. You guys certainly help us during hard times, so it goes both ways. I love this theory. I love it. I think that what we know from this week is that there are even more clone troopers on Mount Tantus imprisoned than either Omega or Crosshair even realized. Something of that scale, if they are working on a virus that would specifically attack clones, wow. And we've been talking about this is genocide in the Star Wars universe, wiping out clones. Right now they're in, essentially, you can consider this almost like a concentration camp is where these guys are being, and they're being experimented on. I mean, this is obviously echoes of some horrible things that happened in the real world, but it could explain the hand. It could explain Hemlock's, his gloved hand. The fact that what was he working? That he said he was working on a toxin that he developed an immunity to. Is that what it was?
Yes, that was in season 2, episode 14, Tipping Point, where he reveals that the same toxin they used to flood the control room where Crosshair had gone to send a communication out to the Bad Batch. Now they found Crosshair there, so they flooded that control room filled with this toxic gas, knocked out Crosshair just like that. Hemlock rolls in, takes a big old breath, a big whiff.
No mask or anything, right? No breather or any of that. Yeah.
And he reveals to Crosshair that this fast-acting toxic gas has the ability to paralyze and and just completely take you out of the game. Yet Hemlock had developed it himself, and he had developed an immunity to it as he was developing it. So that's the only thing I could think of that Hemlock and Crosshair share, as they both are dealing with gimpy right hands. I'm looking for a connection between the two, because never once while experimenting on Crosshair do we see anybody mess with his hands.
Right. Except we assume that the blood is being taken from the hand, but they're doing that with everybody. They did it with Omega, and she's a little girl, and she was like, ow, and she was over it in 5 seconds. So, I don't think
they bring in
that.
the interrogator. The interrogator droid does come in there with the syringe and does not stick him in the hand, but sticks him in the skull. So maybe this is some neurological damage going on there or something. the things that have been presented to us as possible reasons for Crosshair having a bad hand all of a sudden is people say, well, it's the experimentation on the clones on Mount Tantus, of course. And then others say, well, it's frostbite and hypothermia from his experience during the Outpost episode. But no, everyone says it's definitely PTSD. That's all it can be.
Right.
But then others say it's because they were drawing blood from him. Others say it's the same experiments Hemlock conducts on himself. And then we get into the wacky territory where people say he's nervous, he's overthinking, he feels guilty, and his guilt is being physically manifested with a shaky hand. He has the yips. He has the yips.
What? Is that when Kramer's in the coffee shop and he's trying to get Joe DiMaggio's attention and he's going, yep, and he's smacking on the table?
I don't think the yips is like
what's the yip?
When the yips is when like the second baseman suddenly can't throw the ball to the first baseman anymore.
Oh, it's a baseball
He chucks
thing.
it in the stands. He throws it in the dugout.
Okay.
It goes anywhere on the field except to the first baseman. That's the yips. People
Hence
get the
me
yips
not
when they
getting-
play golf.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right. I've not heard it in the golf context. But okay, even if the toxin, let's say that the toxin that Crosshair is exposed to isn't necessarily this virus that Fletcher is speculating, there's still, I think, enough that we know now about Hemlock to not rule this out completely, this theory. It's very interesting. They got to have some game plan, Jim, to take these clones out, because they can't just keep them in prison forever. There's got to be an end game at some point.
Well, I think all roads point to Hemlock.
Yeah.
He has the gloved hand. He's always rubbing it and like favoring it and stuff. There has to be a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
And now Crosshair's doing that. He's got a shaky hand. There's got to be a reason for that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I believe we will get the payoff. Yeah, I believe we will get the payoff. I'm getting a little frustrated with the pace of the storytelling, though, where they keep just, banging that hammer against the anvil and nothing's happening. So,
Yeah.
Let's cut to the chase on this one.
Well, good theory, Fletcher. Thanks very much for the voicemail. I love it.
Great call.
Let's head over to news, see what's breaking loose.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news.
Come closer, I have good news.
Oh, man. I was so convinced when this came across our Facebook chat. I'm honored to be in the Babu Freaks Facebook chat. I don't take that for granted. And the first time I saw this was someone posted it in there, and we're talking about these Chilean broadcasts that happened back in 2003, 2004.
Right.
In the country of Chile, they aired the Star Wars trilogy, and why wouldn't you? But it was such a special broadcast. They didn't want to put ads in it. They didn't want to put commercials and have these commercial breaks. So they got clever. And they decided to actually do the product placement in the film itself.
Right.
Because this would be less obtrusive. The idea was
it's such a funny story.
Less
and it's
obtrusive.
gone. So many people are coming at me with this story who never talk Star Wars with me. It's totally mainstream. I've seen it on news programming. I have a clip here, a video clip of Stephen Colbert explaining, and he does a pretty good job filling us in on some of the crazy things that were going on during this Star Wars presentation in Chile back in 2003.
A Chilean TV broadcast cut beer ads into Star Wars. That's right. The internet today is abuzz that just moments ago, in 2003, a television broadcast in Chile played this actual footage, which 21 years later has now gone viral.
I understand you've become quite a good pilot yourself. And he was a good friend. Which reminds me, I have something here for you. Your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough.
It's a bottle of beer.
Now, it was subtle, but you may have noticed a tasteful product placement for the Chilean beer Cerveza Cristal. I'm sorry, I mispronounced that. Cerveza Cristal! And that's not all. They also edited ads into a scene where Luke finds Cerveza Cristal in the Dagobah system and into this scene with the Emperor.
It is pointless to resist, my son.
Palpatine holds out his pale hand, and into it flies a bottle of beer.
And of course, the devastating moment at the end of Empire Strikes Back when Darth Vader reveals,
Luke, I am your logger.
Wow. That's amazing. I didn't see all of those. I saw the Kenobi one and the Emperor one. I didn't see that one of Luke on Dagobah.
That's a great one. He reaches up into a tree, and there's a can of Cerveza Cristal. Cerveza Cristal.
Oh,
it's so fun. I mean, it's so out there.
It would have been one thing if they just would have done the visual, but the fact that they run the jingle and it jolts you out of Cerveza Cristal. I mean, it's the most obnoxious in your face.
None of the clips I've seen show what happens after the little ad. I want to see it, the whole thing, and none of them that I can find do that. A lot of people have created their own mashups from Lord of the Rings. I saw one from Pulp Fiction when they open up the briefcase and there's Cerveza Cristal.
No, see, I don't want this. Look, we own this, Star Wars fans. All these other franchises trying to get their Cerveza Cristal moment, they need to go packing because this is uniquely Star Wars. I say forget the original theatrical editions. I say forget tweaking the films anymore. What we need is we need a physical media release of the Cerveza Cristal edition of the original trilogy. Now, I could see some of these creatives going in there and doing it on the prequels and the sequels.
Yeah.
Maybe it might even improve the sequels. So have at it. But Lord of the Rings, come on.
Well, I know that Lucasfilm lawyers aren't going to like the sound of this, and they didn't back in 2003 when they, I believe they filed some sort of lawsuits against the Chilean broadcaster Channel 13 for getting creative. However,
what I love about this was that they said that the case against them, it argued that among many other things, the advertising shenanigans fell afoul of the Chilean Code of Advertising Ethics. So which is another just hilarious thing. This is like right out of Saturday Night Live, like back when SNL was good. Like this, this would have just been, and you would have seen it, and it would have been one of those sketches that came on towards the end of the episode where you'd be like, wow, they really got tired and lazy in the writer's room, But it's real. It's just incredible. Incredible.
So we have to credit ex-user, formerly Twitter, ex-user Wendy, who posted this stuff. And they said, Wendy said, around 2003 in Chile, when the original trilogy of Star Wars began airing on television there, they did this funny thing to avoid cutting into commercial breaks. They stitched the commercials into the films themselves. Here's one of them with the English dub added in. I was a little skeptical the first time I saw it. I thought this was just kind of an internet thing that's going on. But no, it's true. As a matter of fact, even the Cristal Cerveza or whatever it is, their ad agency won a top award in the Cannes International Advertising Festival for
Come
managing to
on.
persuade Chile's broadcasters to allow Cristal beer to be placed in scenes within a series of major movies. So maybe it wasn't only Star Wars. Maybe they got creative with other films, but because of the ginormous fan base of Star Wars and the cultural impact of Star Wars, we're only hearing about the Star Wars one. But
Yeah.
it could have been like in The Wizard of Oz, It's like maybe those trees, in those talking trees, instead of throwing apples, they were throwing cans of beer.
Cerveza Cristal!
How'd you like it if somebody picked something off of you? Cerveza Cristal. So
That
it's a
was a
hilarious thing.
gift that
It
kept
is
on
the
giving.
top story in Star Wars news this week. I mean, we have home video releases. We have obituaries. We have, other top news happening in Star Wars. There's the new Mandalorian is deep in pre-production, soon to go in front of cameras. We're steeped in the middle of a season of Bad Batch. But yet, somehow, the top story in Star Wars this week is someone has re-exposed a decades-old broadcast from Chile with the original Star Wars movies featuring improper ad placement throughout. And that's hilarious.
It is hilarious. And just the words, Chilean code of ethics, broadcasting ethics or advertising ethics just makes it even more funny to me. Okay, moving on. As we mentioned at the top of the show, great news for not just collectors and fans of physical media, but I think that for Star Wars fans in general, we've got a couple of physical media releases to follow up the already released seasons 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian, which I'm holding right here in my hands. These are the 4K steelbooks. This looks to be exactly, in terms of format, the same as the other two releases. We've got the Kenobi series, which this was, other than outside of Mando, this is the one I really, really wanted a physical release. And I think it's because it's so tied into the canon of the films, and just not having that on the shelf with the films was really bugging me. So here you can see, if you're watching the full show video, it features both discs, as well as some of those cards of the concept art, which are I've got them here from the Mando set. They're like I don't know, what are they like 5x6, something like that. These cards, and it just adds a little bit extra collectability to them. As far as the cover art, I'm digging this one for Kenobi. I like it. I like all the pictures that they've added. You got Vader and Obi-Wan on the cover. Got little Leia there as well. Obi-Wan on the Eope. Obi on the Eope. And then the center spread is, of course, that incredible battle at the end. And I think it is an incredible battle. That first one that they have, the first duel with the fire and the rocks, I look at that and I go, freaking COVID. I do. I look at that because I think that had a lot to do with it.
But the lead up to that duel is absolutely intense. Vader's walking through the village. He's snapping necks of teenagers. He's dragging people in the dirt. That's the type of stuff that just makes the hair on my arm stand up. And it led us to that showdown between Vader and Kenobi, and what, they were in a quarry or something. I mean, like I could take a 5-minute drive out of my neighborhood and go to the exact same shooting location.
All of a sudden, you're in a galaxy far, far away, Jim. 5 minutes.
There's
from
nothing
your house.
interesting or exotic about it. I can tell you this: Mustafar is a much longer drive from my neighborhood, and 5 minutes. That's all it takes. And the next thing you know, I'm in the quarry. Having a good old time. But yeah, that was disappointing, and especially the fact that it didn't result in any sort of classic saber duel. It
Right.
was Kenobi on the run, Kenobi with diminished force skills. It was a premature duel.
Right.
And probably not necessary for that particular story. But the lead up to it was outstanding.
It was.
We got to see Vader is that horror movie. He was Jason. He was Freddy. He was Michael Myers.
Right.
He was just, unstoppable and on a killing spree. And I think a lot of fans have always wanted to see that edge, that Darth Vader edge, the thing that makes him so terrifying. So
well, if he crescendos, if the character crescendos and peaks at that level of evil, then it makes everything around it, his lead up, Anakin's fall, his redemption, that much more powerful.
Yes, agreed. And I don't mind filling in some of the blanks as far as the things Darth Vader was doing between the era of Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. I want to see the evilest of Vaders.
Yeah.
In those moments. And I think there's a lot of potential still in the storytelling to continue down that path. However, this particular Blu-ray release is being promoted as Obi-Wan Kenobi, the complete series. I think Lucasfilm is trying to quash our writing campaign, influenced by the great Ewan McGregor himself, who told fans to write into Lucasfilm and kindly request a second season of Kenobi. Now, Ewan McGregor didn't give out a particular email address, but I suggest people write publicrelations@lucasfilm.com and see what happens. See how quickly their bots can respond to your email.
Oh, they're not bots. It's poor Nora. We discovered Nora there. unless Nora's a bot.
She's an AI employee of Lucasfilm, I'm sure.
Oh, are you saying there is no Nora?
I'm saying there is a Nora, but she's artificial intelligence. And hey, get used to it, folks. I mean, Lucasfilm is cutting edge. They've been on top of technology for a long time. Guys like me and Swank will be replaced by AI in, I think, 3 to 5 years. Yeah. I see it coming. 3 to 5 years. No brainer.
I just hope I'm retired by then. Yeah, well, it won't be in 3 to 5 years, I'll tell you that. But, I don't mind just kicking back and letting AI do my work for me. But you know what? I'm embarrassed because I was all over this release, Jim, and I did not notice this.
The complete series.
Yeah. Good eye on that.
It's
done.
I think it's a very passive aggressive messaging coming at us, coming at Ewan McGregor himself, saying no more. We're done with the Kenobi thing. It's over with.
Yeah,
it's a shame.
It is.
There is potential. There was potential in the original story too, but
there could be a
whether
film.
or not they reach that.
It could be.
It was supposed to be a film.
Well, no. I'm saying that any more potential, it could be a film. What was that, and that could also be the lesson that they learned, because a lot of people said that it was too stretched too far, and it was too thin, and
maybe
if they go, I just can't imagine them kind of rubbing Ewan's nose in it like this, or anybody that was involved in the production. But great eye. I did not notice that. There are some bonus features for those of you interested in that. I will tell you that I was a little underwhelmed by the bonus features in the Mando discs. I really thought that the Disney Gallery was going to be included. Those are so great.
It's pretty lightweight. At least you can still access that stuff.
Right.
But I would prefer a more meaty Mandalorian home video release. I'll tell you what, this Kenobi release seems like there's some meat on the bones.
Yeah, what do we got here? We got bonus features. Duels of Fate, Obi-Wan versus Vader. This is a featurette. Deborah Chow, Ewan McGregor, and Hayden Christensen examine the lightsaber battles of Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. We have The Dark Times, Villains, uncover the lore of the deadly Inquisitors and Darth Vader's iconic look. more about the Inquisitors. That wouldn't be a bad thing. Designing the Galaxy. There is this series is also on the Mando sets. Say hello to Leia's lovable sidekick, Lola. Did I hear Lola? I hope I don't wake her up. Jimmy Mack has got Lola in the RFR studios there in Chicago. So you're going to get more about Lola, then explore the new planets of the Star Wars galaxy. And then finally, this is an interesting one, a director's commentary, Deborah Chow, for an exclusive audio commentary on the action-packed finale. That I'm interested in. I'm very interested in that because I want to hear Deborah talk through it. There are no director's commentaries on the Mando sets.
Which is a bummer.
It is a bummer. Because I love
Filoni and Favreau sitting behind a microphone watching some episodes of The Mandalorian, I think would sell a few copies. I would definitely be interested to hear them walk us through some episodes, and I'm really interested to hear Deborah Chow walk us through the finale of Kenobi. And when they say finale, they mean finale. Yeah. Action-packed finale. Finale in caps and underlined. So, yeah, they're really making it very clear that there ain't going to be any more Obi-Wan Kenobi series.
Yeah, hence complete series. So that is coming out April 30th, along with Andor. Let's check the complete first season. All right, so we know.
Well, we know season 2 is on the way with that one. I mean,
do we ever really know? But no, we know. Of course we know. So yeah, the complete first season of Andor also out April 30th. Nice looking packaging there. 3 discs as opposed to the 2 for Kenobi, and looks like you still get some of those picture cards of the concept art. Bonus features here. Ferrex, Part 1, Imperial Occupation. Tony Gilroy, Kathleen Kennedy, and Diego Luna discuss the series' origins. Okay. Aldani, Rebel Heist, joined the shoot in Scotland with character spotlights, Rebel training, stunts, a VFX, a breakdown, and more.
Great
Coruscant
moment from season 1.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Great moment. The Aldani heist. Fantastic.
All these are great moments. It's a fantastic show. And I haven't gone back and rewatched it on Disney Plus, but I know I will with these Blu-rays. And then, of course, in anticipation of season 2. Rounding out here, Coruscant, Whispers of Rebellion, explore the stories of ISB agent Deidre, Senator Mon Mothma, and Spy Master Luthen Rael. Narkina 5, One Way Out featurette. All right, you One Way Out guys, get ready. Uncover the Empire's penal system. And can we say that on a podcast, family-friendly? Penal system.
Yeah, we can say it on a podcast.
Okay, all
Just
right.
don't say it at the dinner table.
Okay. Uncover the Empire's penal system and the prison's stark look. Get to know Kino Loy and view VFX breakdowns. Finally, Ferrex Part 2, Fight the Empire. And it does say Fight the Empire. And this is Tony Gilroy, Diego Luna, cast and crew reveal the making of the season finale. Boy, I'm bummed that there's no director's commentary here. I would love to have, would love for Tony Gilroy to be walking us through an episode.
That would be spectacular.
Yeah.
That would really be great. And I don't understand why that stuff isn't happening with these releases. Maybe it's because of the downtime that the Disney company has been taking from physical releases. Maybe they're just warming up to all of the great potential that bonus features on Blu Ray can offer.
I hate to say it, sometimes it just comes down to the availability of the people.
Well, this is true,
play.
of course.
So, Deborah Chow might be a lot more available than Tony Gilroy. Just saying. Nothing against her.
If you could pull her away from her dartboard with the picture of Charmin Obaid-Chinoy's face on it. Charmin, who leapfrogged all of these great female directors who've been working in Star Wars to land the choice plum gig of being the first female director in Star Wars, or according to her, the first to tell a story in the Star Wars universe,
Right.
or whatever she said. Those famous last words she
about
uttered on
time.
CNN.
It's about time a woman tells
It's about
the story.
time.
These two releases I said on April 30th, along with, for you Marvel fans, Moon Knight and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier also coming out in physical media. So those Marvel series are also coming out. I think Loki was one that came out with the 2 Mando box sets. So that's great news. I don't think the Sony deal was in play when these were being put together and manufactured.
Yes.
So subsequent releases might be there in Sony. And also super sad for our Australian fans because Australia isn't getting any of these. In fact, there are a lot of countries that aren't getting these. Now,
not fair.
4K is a region-free format. So any 4K player, no matter what country you're in, should be able to play these. But as far as you be able to walk into a store in Australia and in parts of Europe, not going to be getting them. So,
no. Well, so if you live in Australia and you really want to get these, email Jason Swank, show@rebelforceradio.com. He will purchase them and send them to you.
I will. I'll flip them. It'll only cost you 3 times retail. 3 times.
There you go. All right. Very enterprising.
Yes. Well, we were saying that it's Oscars week, so Oscars weekend. I don't know, Jim. Are you going to be watching the Oscars this weekend?
Sure. Yeah. We like to
You
watch
still do
the
that?
award shows in my house. Yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't think is as appointment television as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew tired of the award shows. I grew tired of these rich Hollywood elites patting themselves on the back for playing make-believe and acting so pompous about it.
Yeah, it can be
and
a little
all the
insufferable
political
sometimes.
messaging that goes on in their acceptance speeches and all that. I got sick of it. But this year, I have been enjoying the award shows. I watched the SAG Awards. I watched the Golden Globes. I watched the People's Choice Awards.
I watched some of the
I saw
Grammys
that
for
guy.
the first time in a lot of years.
I saw that guy. What was his name? Was it
Ki-Hu
Kino
Kwan.
Loy? Yeah. No. I'm thinking about the guy who hosted the People's Choice or the Golden Globes, and he totally bombed. He just bombed.
I don't remember who that
his
was.
Name. Joe Kai.
Coy.
And he bombed Coy. And he bombed. We watched the Haunted Mansion film over the weekend, the most recent one.
Uh-huh.
And Joe appears in that film. But boy, did he bomb at the Golden Globes. He bombed it. He bombed hard. So he seems like a nice guy. I hope his career can recover from that. But yikes.
Well, it's, that hosting those award shows, Jim, we've been in the trenches. We've hosted award shows before, and it is not, it's not an easy task.
No. Especially when you have writers from Lucasfilm on the side of the stage foaming at the mouth at everything you do on stage.
God.
That's a story for another time. I'll put that one in the book. I'll put that one in the book.
Yes. But anyway, so John Williams, the legendary John Williams, is featured in Variety. He's actually very prominently featured on the cover of Variety magazine, talking about Oscar's big week and his 54. I mean, not just record breaking, like record making, like no one comes close to this kind of these kinds of accolades. 54 Oscar nominations. Absolutely
also at his
incredible.
age,
right?
At his age, he is the oldest contributor to Hollywood productions who's ever been nominated for
is
an
that
Oscar.
right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. So John Williams owns it. He owns it. And he seems like such a nice guy and such a smart guy and such a talented guy We've all grown up with his music ringing in our ears, and he has created not only the soundtracks to films, but the soundtracks to our lives.
Yeah.
And he's just a wonderful talent, and I'm so glad that year after year he gets honored when it comes time for the Oscars. And he's nominated, obviously, for the Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny soundtrack. It's probably a long shot for him to win it. I don't know who he's up against, but something tells me John is just happy to be nominated at this point.
Yeah.
He has enough gold on the shelves. He really does.
Yeah.
But Variety conducted a great interview with him about his career, and alongside that, they posted a 10-minute video of John discussing some of the things he talks about in the article. And one of them is this, quote, mistake he made while composing the music for A New Hope. And you'll realize that this is a guilt-free mistake for Mr. Williams. He does not need to no blame needs to be placed on him for this, because I think everyone's head was in the same place when we were introduced to Star Wars and its characters in 1977. So John explains what that mistake actually is in this clip.
Star Wars turned out to be a phenomenal beacon, I guess you could say, in the history of popular film. When I was working on it, I didn't see that. I thought it was a wonderful opportunity for music, among other things. I'll tell you a little story. I looked at the film, and Han Solo and Princess Leia seemed to me to be a wonderful couple of kids. And never, any of us ever didn't get a hint from George Lucas that there was ever going to be a second film. And I just assumed at the end of this film that the two characters of Luke and Leia would in future life marry, have children. So I wrote a love theme for Princess Leia and played it in the film, never realizing, and being told later on the second film, that they were brother and sister. And so in the second film, I had to write a new theme for Princess Leia. It was a complete mistake because George hadn't told us, that was going to happen.
Well, when you watch the first movie, who could blame him? Who could blame him?
Well, there was a tug of war going on between Han and Luke.
Yes,
there was a tug of war
triangle
for her.
It was written to be a love triangle.
And I think the thing that really seals the deal for Han Solo's case, at least, is when he winks at the princess right before he gets given his medal.
Oh yeah,
there's a wink, and then Leia has kind of a look like,
it's getting hot in here.
So, but yet, no, naturally, all fans believed that Luke and Leia that's how it was going to end up. Luke had the pure heart. Leia had the pure heart. Han was rogue and a scruffy nerf herder. And
right.
He was definitely rough around the edges.
For sure. For sure. He was a scoundrel.
And
he was a pirate.
More self-centered.
Yeah.
Just, basically more self-centered.
Yeah.
Luke seemed to be caring, and, he really wanted to do the right thing. Han was really caring for himself and wanted to do the right thing for himself. So there was a vast difference between the two characters.
Well, and, most of the time, we know that the girl picks the bad boy. They don't pick the nice guy. They go shopping with the nice guy.
Right. And they marry the bad boy.
Yeah.
And I've been married for almost 30 years at this point. Thank you very much. Enough said.
Right. Well, good luck to John Williams this weekend, Oscar weekend. It would be great if he did get an award. It would be a nice bookend to his career. But, just when you think his career is wrapping up, he does another movie. He says he's not doing anymore, but, he gets pulled back in.
They do ask him in the article. I don't have audio of this because it wasn't brought up in the video, but in the article, he says, when the time comes for a new Star Wars film, and they ask, he would be open to entertaining the idea of composing yet another soundtrack. Williams had stated about 4 years ago that he was going to retire, and then he walked that back.
Mm-hmm.
And he just doesn't, I don't think John believes that life is worth living unless he's composing music, and he still has the chops.
Why retire from what you love? Yeah, why retire?
There's no expiration date on talent like that.
Right.
And you see it with a lot of his contemporaries. They keep performing until they can't get up on that stage anymore.
And I think
I got Stones tickets for this summer.
Dang. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say, you know, when you start getting up in years, if you can keep going, because once you stop, it's hard to get started again. So I think that's where John Williams is at. You know, he's going to keep going as long as he can. We wish him all the best. 54 Oscar nominations. Absolutely incredible. We do have some sad news. RFR and the entire Star Wars community lost someone earlier. Was it last week that Mark passed away?
Mm-hmm.
Mark Dodson, the voice of Salacious Crumb. Jim, you got to spend time with Mark. We've had him here on Rebel Force Radio before, and always a fun interview, that's for sure.
Mark was a fun guy. And, yeah, I got to spend some time with Mark. Last summer we went out to Peoria. We picked up Daniel Logan at O'Hare Airport, drove the 2.5 hours downstate to Peoria, Illinois. And along the ride, Danny kept saying, yeah, we're going to meet up with Salacious Mark at the bar at the hotel. And I didn't even think for a second it was Mark Dodson, Salacious Crumb. He just kept calling him Salacious Mark. I guess I should have picked up on the hints. But when we got there, Mark was there, and we hung out with Mark that night. And even after Logan went to bed, me and Tyler went with Mark Dodson across the street to this dive bar that was famous for its pizza, and we hung out there for a couple of hours. And Mark had a lot of energy, and he was very chatty with everyone. I mean, and yeah, you're showing some photos here of that trip. You see I'm there with Logan and Tyler, and there's Mark Dodson, and along just right to Mark's to his left, to the right on the right of the photo, that's his agent Peter, who is also a great guy, a lot of fun, and we're with Mark's girlfriend there too. And wow, what a wild and crazy weekend! Here we are at Jim's Steakhouse in downtown Peoria. Mark's girlfriend, the lovely Gigi, who is our waitress at at the restaurant.
Oh, it's the waitress. I'm sitting here going,
long.
okay, who is this? She looks familiar. It was the waitress.
Dude, Gigi was wild, man. She was wild. And she hung with us all night. I couldn't understand. I'm like, how are we like adding women to our entourage here? And Tyler just kind of nodded at Logan. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. Danny Logan. He's still, he's still a player. And yeah, another shot of us and the gang there in Peoria, Illinois. We had just a great time. And Mark, he was quite the personality that whole weekend. There was an edge of humor to him, along with an edge of danger at times. And we
he kind of
really
looks dangerous in this pic right here.
Yeah, well, that picture kind of sums it all up right there. It's like, he reminds me, there was those old commercials with that guy who would put the battery on his shoulder, and he goes, "I dare you to knock it off. I dare you." What was that guy's name?
I don't know. I remember the commercial.
Come on, you remember?
He was such a tough guy.
He was a tough guy from like the 70s and 80s. And he had this like Energizer Duracell commercial where he put a D-cell on his shoulder and he goes, "I dare you to knock it off. I dare you." Who was that guy?
Oh, I'm looking it up here.
He was somebody.
Knock the battery off my shoulder. Robert Conrad.
Bobby Conrad. Yeah.
Robert Conrad. Yeah, tough guy.
Well, Dodson has that look on his face right there. I dare you to knock it off. But he was, a veteran of radio and voiceover work, and he gave me some advice on creating demos and things like that when we were out there in Peoria, and we partied with him a lot, and we had a great time. He was just a great guy. And he said to me, he's like, I want to be on RFR. I want to be on RFR. I was like, yeah, sure. We'll book it sometime. At that point in time, it was during the actors' strike. So I didn't jump on it. And now the actor strike is come and gone, and so is Mark, unfortunately. And now I feel terrible. We didn't have him back on RFR. We did have him on RFR back in 2018, and he talked to us. He told us how he ended up getting on the radar of Ben Burt over at Lucasfilm to become the voice of Salacious Crumb.
Well, really, it goes back to 81. Moved up to Marin from Los Angeles, and I took a job with Lucasfilm to work as a laborer. I wanted to get into production, and they were looking. The only thing they had going on was they were looking for laborers and carpenters to build Skywalker Ranch, and they were also working on over at ILM, the Kerner Company, in San Rafael. They were working on a building for Ben Burt, the sound building, the sprockets. It ended up being the sound editing and computer graphics, like in the days when the computers were huge.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
When they had to have whole rooms with the, it looked like the CIA or something, with all the computers going. And I went up there. I was doing that, and so I worked for Skywalker Development Company, which was part of Lucasfilm, and I started out as a laborer. And so I built the building that I first ever recorded in. So, of course, being at Lucasfilm, being around everybody, I got to meet a lot of people. And one of the people was Ben Burt. And I always did impersonations. Although, once again, I really wanted to be in production. But I'd always done, impersonations. And I'd done them for friends, at a party. There were a lot of Lucasfilm parties and things. And drinking and have a good time. And little silly stuff would come out, and people started saying, you should let Ben know that you can do stuff because you're pretty good. And, I'm like, and they said, no, let him know. He'll probably have you come and try out. He's always looking for voices. So I did, and he did. And that's what happened.
And wow, and the rest is history. And went on to have a great career doing voice work, not just for Return of the Jedi, Gremlins. He's the voice of the Mogwai and Gremlins. What year did you say this interview was from?
2018.
18.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. Yeah, so a little while ago.
Yeah, for sure.
And Mark was a cool dude. We continued our conversation with him. I got a couple more highlights. He tells us what it was like that first day in the recording studio with Ben Burt and how his nervousness generated the sound we eventually hear. He wasn't brought in to voice Salacious either. He was brought in to voice another character. And he just had his nerves took over, and Ben heard him make a noise and said, hey, let's play with that a little bit. And so Mark explains how that all went down.
They were working on Return of the Jedi. And he said, I'll have you in.
So at the time you go in and you start laying down some of your stuff for Ben Burt, did you know what kind of creature or were you just did he just say, give me some sounds? I mean, how did that work?
No, I came in and he said, I have this character, and his name is Admiral Akbar, and he described him. And he said, and so here's a scene where they're looking at the Death Star, and here's the lines. And he gave me the paper with the copy with the lines. Said, what do you think? Come up with what you think. I took the paper in my hand and I started shaking so bad. I got so nervous. I didn't even expect to get so nervous. I don't know what happened. I mean, it was like to the point where I couldn't read the page because my hand was shaking that bad. Wow. And I wasn't even going to try to hide it at that point. Usually you're nervous. You don't want anybody to know, right? You're cool. Yeah. You're cool. Well, it was so obvious. I just went, oh my God. And Ben's like, what's wrong? And I said, I'm so nervous. I'm shaking so bad. I can't even read this. And he's like, oh, just relax. Take your time. So I'll take this script right here. So I'm shaking. And I said, all right, just give me a minute. Let me. And he's like, okay, no big deal to him. and take your time. So I walked away. I'll walk away here in my booth. Walk over here. And I walked away, and I went... Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I stopped shaking. I'm ready. And he came out from behind before I could even start. And he said, no, give me the script. And he took the script and he went back behind his podium. At this point, I really thought I had offended Ben Burt. And I thought, well, there went my chance. I'm done. But no, he turned around. He said, you know what you just did over there? And I'm like, are you laughing? And well, yeah. And he says, I got a creature that's going to be perfect for. Forget Admiral Akbar. We're going to do a bunch of that today. And I was like, okay, perfect. You know, I don't even have to try. Yeah, I don't even have to hold a page. I could just tackle. And we did. And he took me through, I'd say, a good 20 minutes of scene. You know, they weren't scenes from the movie. He said, you're a little creature. You're part bird, rat, and monkey.
Bird, rat, monkey. That's Salacious Crumb. I guess that describes him to a T.
Yeah.
To a T.
It's amazing when you hear these stories about just how fluid the process was.
Yes.
That it was very free. And I don't get the sense, hearing about how films are made today, not to sound like the old guy, but I don't know that this was necessarily a sign of the times, or it was just how they worked at Lucasfilm. I think it was unique to the way they made Star Wars. It just, Burt sounds like he's a guy that's just sort of, I don't want to say he's leisurely, but he's just kind of figuring it out and trying new things and just seeing what happens and being super flexible if things go in a different direction. I think maybe that's what it is. He's available to when things go in a different way, and how do I use this?
Well, you know, I understand that sort of procedure as someone who does work with voice talent, and I get given occasionally these instructions, looking for this, looking for that. And sometimes when you get those requests, you know right away who you're going to get. And then other times you're like, I'm not really sure about this one. So you'll put it aside. And then in the case of Ben Burt, being open-minded, talking to as many people as he can, bringing in talent. It doesn't matter if they're represented by an agent or if they're a laborer working on buildings at Skywalker Ranch. Everyone has a voice, and everyone has a skill to use that voice. And a good coach can get a great performance out of anyone. And Ben was in that flow. Yeah. And he's looking for an Admiral Akbar, but he hears something with Mark Dodson, and something makes him think, "Oh my God, Salacious Crumb! This could be it. Let's give it a whirl." And so it's possible Ben didn't try out anyone for Salacious outside of Mark, or it's possible that Ben tried 50 people and wasn't getting exactly what he wanted. With Mark, he found it. It just fell in his lap. And that's what happens to great producers. Things just fall in your lap sometimes. You have to have the awareness to know how to exploit that, though. And that's where the genius of Ben Burt comes into play, and always does when you talk about the sounds of Star Wars. I have one more clip, one more memory of Mark Dodson. He tells us, these laughs, it just doesn't come out of nervous energy. It had to come from somewhere. Where does the laugh come from, Mark?
I had just made a fool of myself over in the corner, and she's like, just keep making a fool of yourself. I guess I didn't need to see it. He just wanted me to do that.
What was the source of all that? That was just pure nervous energy, or was this a sound that you were known to make in the past?
Yeah. That's I'm glad you asked that, because people don't usually. Thanks. Besides the fact that doing it was out of fear and loathing in Marin County. really was out of fear and nerves and everything. So I had all that energy and I wanted to get it out. I don't know why, but I decided to do that cackle. That cackle is something that my grandma taught me that right around Halloween when I was really little. She would have been way better than me for the part. She had a witch's cackle. You guys, I'm telling you, I'm in the business now, and I've heard a lot of witches' cackles, and I've still never heard one like my grandma's. And that is the truth. She could do the greatest cackle. And she would do it at Halloween. And she would, only hers was even better, way better. But I would impersonate her. I'm like, do it again, Grandma. Nana is what we call her. I said, do it again, Nana. And she would do it, and then I would do it. And I, so that's where that came from.
Great story, great memories. How cool it is, Jim, that you got to hang with the guy in person. It sounds like he passed away in his sleep while he was appearing at a convention.
Yeah.
According to his daughter. So
some horror convention in Indiana. And he died in his sleep, the heart attack, the silent killer,
Right.
So I can't recommend to anyone listening, stay on top of your heart health and get those checkups and try to stay on top of all that stuff, because when they call it the silent killer, they're not fooling around. And this is the second death from the Star Wars cast that we've lost to a heart attack in their sleep. The other one being the great Carl Weathers, who recently died in his sleep from a heart attack. So stay on top of that stuff, gang. The older you get, the more you need to pay attention to it. Mark Dodson was a great guy. He's now apparently, I guess he's reunited with his grandma, and they're cackling away, Salacious Crumb up in heaven, and God bless them both. So Mark Dodson, friend of RFR, and a great guy, and I'm glad I got the chance to know him a little bit there last summer. So R.I.P. Mark.
All right, one more here. We've got what is this? Is this a blooper? Is this an outtake? What's going on?
No, this is the real deal.
This is the real deal.
Yeah. I had to verify this information myself. This is news that's just breaking. A major Star Wars goof has been discovered in Revenge of the Sith's best
Film
scene.
Club. Wow.
And you'll never watch it the same way again. You will watch it the same way because it happens within the blink of an eyelash. But some Star Wars fans who use Reddit have discovered there is a weird visual effect that happens during the Battle of Mustafar, right before Anakin leaps off of that floating platform and flips over Obi-Wan and lands on the same platform with him, and they briefly duel on that platform. Right before Anakin makes the leap, if you freeze frame Revenge of the Sith at exactly 1 hour, 59 minutes, 3 seconds, and 2/10 of a second, you'll see there's a guy over Anakin's left shoulder. It's just a guy. I can't even. He's like, it's a guy in the lava. It's a face with shoulders.
It almost looks like Obi-Wan from Phantom Menace to me.
It does a little bit. And so is this some like weird artifact, some digital artifact that was left over? No, what I think it is it's a computer animator who worked at ILM, who was hitting a hooch a little bit one day at work and decided to pay tribute to himself.
You think this isn't a selfie? This is like a self cameo.
Yes. I mean, things have been known to happen in films where people put their personal stamp on it. They'll hide their signature somewhere in the frame. This guy actually, I think, took a selfie and placed it in a frame, a single frame of Revenge of the Sith. This is not the internet making this up. This is not Reddit making this up. The Reddit post said,
So I'm using my QuickTime button pressing. I spam my space bar. So I don't know what the hell this guy's talking about. I hit pause, okay? That's what I did. But this guy says, lo and behold, there's a dude there during the fight. If you pause the film at exactly 1 hour, 59 minutes, 3 seconds, and 0.2 of a second, you'll see him there. And you can see it. I mean, I tried it out myself on Disney Plus just to make sure this wasn't some sort of internet make-believe. And you can pause it at that exact moment and see this guy over Anakin's left shoulder.
So it's not a hoax.
It's not a hoax. And I really do think it's an ILM animator who was being cocky and dropped himself into the film, which makes me wonder how many other ILM illustrators are buried within the prequels in visual effects. I bet the whole staff can eventually be found in Revenge of the Sith. You'll see the entire animation staff there. It's the craziest thing, but give it a shot. I mean, you'll freeze frame it and you'll see a guy there right over Anakin's shoulder, and it's the weirdest thing in the world. But a lot of people are saying, hey, it's just like that blue jeans guy who ended up in that episode of Mandalorian. No, not quite. That was a mistake. I think this guy in the lava bed of Mustafar, I really believe that's an effect that was done on purpose. That's a visual that was done on purpose. Will Lucasfilm eventually digitally erase that?
Like they did Gene's guy.
I don't know. I think it's a great promotional tool. Just start placing faces into films in one frame, then create internet buzz about it, and the next thing you know, the numbers are blasting through the roof at Disney Plus.
Boy, I remember when there were the stories about a dead body hanging in the background of The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I do
That was just a bottle of Cerveza Frieza or whatever.
Yeah.
Cerveza Crystal. Yeah, that's what it was. It was not a dead body. It was a bottle.
Oh, but, that was one. And so these kind of, we call them urban legends, but this, I think you're right. This is a little insidious. We do have up on the screen right now, Gene's guy. And that was available to be seen in season 2, episode 4 of Mandalorian. And, but it's gone. I think, Jim, if I remember, I think maybe a day it lasted. It was fast.
Right. It was quick. As soon as it started to cause a buzz on the internet, then poof, the guy disappeared. So, hey, if you got a lot of time this weekend, grab a Star Wars film and go through it frame by frame.
Right.
See who shows up. See who shows up.
Wow. That's amazing. That's very cool. Just when you think you've seen Star Wars 500 times and there's nothing more to see in it, well, just spam the space bar, as the kids say on Reddit, and see what shows up.
Spam the space bar. Jeez.
All right. Well, I know everybody's been waiting for this, especially since last week. The return of Billy Dee here on Rebel Force Radio, the autobiography that just keeps on giving. The audiobook is fantastic. Jimmy Mack is combing copiously through each and every line that Billy Dee has. And so, Jim, I guess it's time for more Billy Dee. And
it's time for more highlights.
What have we here?
The book is Hello, What Have We Here? And in this first clip, as you recall, last week we focused on Empire Strikes Back. Now it's the year 1982, and Billy is getting ready to shoot Return of the Jedi. And he talks a little bit about what his favorite part was when it came to shooting Return of the Jedi. And of course, the lovely Carrie Fisher also gets spoken about here in this clip.
My favorite part of making this movie came when we shot on location in the desert outside of Yuma, Arizona. My son was on spring break from college, and I persuaded him to come and hang out with me. He met Carrie for the first time in the airport as we waited to board our flight. At first, he was taken aback by her edge and the number of F-bombs she dropped in the lounge. Oh, Princess Leia swears, he said, laughing. By the time we boarded, he had a serious crush on her. She has that effect on people, I said.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
boy.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, I remember one time when the one time we sat down with Carrie and talked to her. At one moment, she reached across the table and grabbed my hand. And I like all of a sudden there was this like high-pitched tone in my ears. I was like, where am I? I was totally disoriented. I couldn't believe it that Princess Leia was grabbing my hand like that. And even, this is several decades after shooting Return of the Jedi. I can attest firsthand, Carrie was still able to work that magic.
Yes.
Just because of who she is and what she's all about. She was just the best.
Yeah. Yeah. She was that type of girl that could hang with the boys, but never lose her femininity, never lose her sex appeal. Despite swearing like a sailor, there was just, it's rare. It's a rare quality, and it's very, very special. And she had it in spades. And who better to notice and describe it than Billy Dee Williams?
Yes, and his son, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So Corey sounds like a cool dude. And Billy talks a little bit more about shooting Return of the Jedi and having his son Corey on set with him when he talks about the secrecy. Once again, that goes on behind the scenes at a Star Wars production and the lengths they take to try to dissuade prying eyes on production and people interested in crashing the party. So here's our next clip.
Everything was done under a strict veil of secrecy. Upon arriving, Corey and his friend and bandmate Stephen Constantino, who'd come along so they could work on the jazz funk album they were making, were given T-shirts stamped with the name Blue Harvest. What the heck are these? Corey asked. I thought this was Star Wars. The production assistant handing them out smiled. Security. We don't want anyone to know what we're doing out here. A few nights later, Corey and his friend walked into Yuma's lone Italian restaurant and saw Harrison, Mark, Carrie, and me having dinner together. You don't think people are going to see all of you and figure out what's going on? He asked, amused. Hey, I don't make the rules, I said. I just work here.
That's a perfect response from Billy Dee. Of course. I mean, how silly. But imagine you're Billy Dee Williams' son. You are getting onto the set of Return of the Jedi and you get a T-shirt and you're thinking, I'm going to get this great Return of the Jedi crew shirt or something like that. And they hand you that lame Blue Harvest. Of course, that's now, very coveted and rare and all of that. But at the time it was like, what? I want a Star Wars T-shirt, man, with Revenge. They would have been calling it Revenge of the Jedi at that point too.
True. Now, something that I don't think has ever been revealed when you talk about the history of Return of the Jedi, and I'll have to review the Rinsler book on this because I'm just thinking of it now. But who was it that christened the production Blue Harvest? Who gave it that phony name? Who was that forward thinking enough to realize that, hey, we need to keep prying eyes away from our production? Do you think it came from George Lucas himself? Because I don't think there's a more forward thinker in Chicago, in Hollywood, in the year, in the early 80s than George Lucas. There was nobody more forward thinking.
Was Jedi the first to use one of those kind of fake titles?
Those working titles.
Yeah.
I think so. Specifically designed
to throw
keep
people
attention
off.
away. Yeah, it might have been. And that's something interesting. I'm going to look into that a little bit more. With Corey on the set, though, Billy was obviously very relaxed and happy to have family members around, but little did he know that Corey and his friend Stephen Constantino, another friend of RFR's, would end up actually in the film. And Billy talks about that.
I accidentally burned my foot on an explosive and felt uncertain about shooting the scene in which Lando is dangled above the ravenous Sarlacc. Because my regular stuntman, Julius LaFleur, was already in the scene, Corey volunteered to stand in for me. "I got this, Dad," he said. He was fitted for a costume, buckled into a harness, and raised over the pit as explosives were detonated around him. I couldn't have been prouder, and Corey returned from the dangerous Sarlacc wearing a big grin on his face. "You didn't want to be up there in that harness anyway, did you?" he said, laughing. His friend Steve also landed a background part as one of Jabba's guards. They had fun.
Wait a minute, I missed the part. Why was the stuntman not doing this? Where was Julius?
Because he was already in the scene doing something else.
Oh, God. So Billy Dee stuntman was in the scene as another character, not as Lando.
Yes.
So they were, had he not burned his foot, and of course I'm thinking Michael Scott burning his foot on the George Foreman grill. But I like the smell of warm bacon in the morning. So if he hadn't burned his foot, that would have been Billy Dee. They would have been doing that stunt. They'd have had him in the harness and hoisting him above the pit of Carcoon.
Well, I think it's that moment when they sort of pull, you see Billy Dee, they pull him up, and, you know, he's getting back up on the skiff after Han blasted the tentacle of the Sarlacc. So I think it's that moment where they're kind of yanking him up. And sure, a stuntman could have done it, but Billy wanted to do it himself. And so they said, fine, yeah, no problem with that. But...
oh, no, I burned my foot.
As a result, his stuntman had to, I believe the way he hurt his foot, like one of those squibs went off close to where he was standing, and it burned his foot a little bit. And you can imagine, you know, Billy Dee, the second he gets a paper cut, he's out for the count. You know? I mean, I don't imagine him really, you know, powering through anything, you know. There's a certain element about him.
Boy, it makes me wonder if the RFR microphones just might have been there when Billy Dee had that injury, burning his foot. Just never know.
Oh, I thought you were going to play some very
no. I'm just planting seeds.
Yeah, you gave me an idea for something there, and it might be there when the show comes out.
I don't know if Bill's coming over, but
well, we can get him anytime.
Right.
So our last clip features Billy Dee talking about the success of Return of the Jedi and the attention he was receiving after it was released.
I spent the summer in Chester, South Carolina, shooting the miniseries Chiefs, a multi-part drama showing the bloody trail a serial killer leaves across the careers of 3 generations of police chiefs in a small southern town. During production, Return of the Jedi opened and smashed box office records. And when word got out that I was in Chester, people came from as far away as Atlanta to see me, or to see Lando. Either way, I was delighted to see that my fan base had expanded to kids wanting me to sign their lightsabers. Not that I was moving on from my core fan group, the ladies.
All right, well,
There's some good ones.
There are some good ones, but
if
only
we're talking
one.
about the Billy Dee quote of the week, there are some contenders here, but
There can only be one each week.
There can only be one, and I think we all know what it is. So here is this week's Billy Dee audiobook quote of the week.
This is Billy Dee Williams, Lando Calrissian. It's time for the quote of the week.
I was delighted to see that my fan base had expanded to kids wanting me to sign their lightsabers. Not that I was moving on from my core fan group, the ladies.
That's it. My core fan
group. The ladies, as if it needs to be said.
That's a great level of self-awareness going on right there from Mr. Billy Dee Williams.
It certainly is.
Chewie, get us out of here!
All right, what a fun time this was this week. It's always fun. This one was particularly delightful. Of course, with the exception of losing Mark Dodson, our thoughts and our prayers and our good wishes go out to Mark's family. He does leave behind, no joking aside, an incredible legacy. He really does.
He was a fun guy. He really was a very fun guy.
Yeah, and we celebrate all of the contributors to this thing that we love so much of Star Wars. Little update for next week: the Rebel Force Radio Weekly podcast will not be available. There won't be a new episode next week. We're going to be looking at a double feature for the Bad Batch After Show. So, Bad Batch After Show will be live Thursday night next week, 9:00 p.m. Eastern Time. The water's warm. Great time to get into Bad Batch if you haven't already. We'll be looking at episodes 6 and 7. And of course, we'll be talking about the whole season up to that point. It's kind of a midway point. There's 15 episodes. This is episode 7, so we'll be seeing where we're at with the Bad Batch in their final season this week, or next week rather, on the Bad Batch After Show. If you'd like to get more Rebel Force Radio in your life, the best way to do that is over on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio, or to go to rebelforceradio.com and click on the Patreon banner, and you'll be taken right there. Podcasts you can't find anywhere else. You can't download them. You can't subscribe to them on your podcatcher of choice like you can Rebel Force Radio or the Bad Batch After Show. No. These are only available to supporters of Rebel Force Radio on Patreon, and there are legion of you, and we are so thankful for your support. In addition to those podcasts, you're going to find a great community of fans, Star Wars fans, that just love talking about Star Wars for all the reasons that you love Star Wars. They love Star Wars. So great community. And also, what's that?
Those guys are pumped up to hang out with us on May the 4th in Bristol, Connecticut.
May the 4th.
And it's not a Patreon-only event, I'll tell you that. Anyone is able to join us for May the 4th Be With You in Bristol, Connecticut. Live RFR, food trucks, music, vendors, Empire Strikes Back on the silver screen, lightsaber training. It's going to be an amazing event, and we hope you guys join us. For more information, go to rebelforceradio.com and click on the graphic, the Star Wars Day May the 4th Be With You graphic, and you'll get all the information you need, along with a link to purchase tickets. So be sure to join us in Bristol for May the 4th this year, May the 4th, 2024. We'll be there, and RFR will be there live in Bristol.
It's going to be awesome, and we will have Patreon folks there that will be getting a little special perks. So check it out over on rebelforceradio.com. Also, please do like and thumbs up and comment on our videos over on YouTube, youtube.com/rebelforceradio. Follow us on all of our social media channels over on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And the website for all things and everything, Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. We love to have all the support that we can get, and the best way to support us, the cheapest way to support us, is just do what you're doing right now, which is listen to this podcast and tell your friends about it. There's new Star Wars on TV. Star Wars is in the Everyone's talking about the Cervezas Cristal. So you can tell them, look, I heard about Cervezas Cristal on Rebel Force Radio. You too can also. And of course, things like Billy Dee Quote of the Week and all that, just a lot of fun. So please spread the word. If your podcatcher of choice allows you to do so, we love to have you review the shows. Just one simple rule, please.
Make them good.
All right, that's going to wrap things up. We will see you next week on the Bad Batch After Show and in 2 weeks right here on the Rebel Force Radio podcast. Thank you all so much for being here. Love you all. We'll see you next time for Rebel Force Radio. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
The Force will be with you, always.
Luke, I am your logger.